Hi, gang. It has been a very, very long time since I've been able to make a video or anything for you. Yeah, just been crazy busy with deadlines and stuff. One of the most exciting projects I'm working on right now is Project Blue Book with James Tinian. It's on James's Substack newsletter, so you can sign up for that. I'll put a link below. What I wanted to talk about was I want to show you guys breaking down a page. We're sort of working Marvel style, where James is writing an outline with just the beats per page. From there, I break down these beats into panels after I draw it, with James's sort of instructions and motivations here of what the characters are thinking or doing or saying or feeling. I'll break those down into panels where they're acting out those feelings and such, and then James bounces off of that to write his dialogue. So I just want to show you how I go. I'm just going to show you the breakdowns here, not too much actual drawing or anything. I want to show you what I'm thinking when I get a Marvel style, or what they call the Marvel style script, which is like this, where there's no actual panels or even dialogue. Sometimes there's dialogue. But basically, this is where really the artists and writers really come together in its closest forms to tell a story. So I'm just going to read this as I'm breaking down what's going to be a panel, what's going to be multiple panels, what doesn't need to be a panel, and such. So this is a Betty and Barney Hill story, where the Betty and Barney Hill in the early 60s were the first modern UFO abduction case. So we're telling that story. And this part of the story is where they meet their hypnotist. And this is the introduction to the hypnotist and him taking on the case. That's all that's really going on here. It's just an introduction. We're doing this very straightforward, almost journalistic or documentary style, as opposed to a comic that takes liberties with the narrative and adds or subtracts stuff. We're just trying to tell the facts and make it as engaging as possible, because I think the facts are interesting whether you believe it or not. Anyway, so page 51, we start with Benjamin Simon sitting in his office. That in itself is called the establishing shot. So I know already, looking at this, we need to establish not only this guy, what he looks like, and I had to take time to look him up and research to see if I could find pictures of him, which I did. So we know that he's a hypnotherapist, a psychiatrist, and he's sitting in his office. So that's the setting. This is a psychiatrist's office. And I apologize, maybe he's not a psychiatrist, maybe just a hypnosis or something else. But anyway, this is going to be the establishing shot. First panel shows us where we are, what the environment is, and who we should be focusing on. That's Dr. Benjamin Simon in his office. Panel 1. Establish a few of his current credentials, and that he had been recommended to Betty and Barney Hill. Now, this is mostly going to be done in the captions, because there's a narration going on. So most of that is going to be here, but the points are his credentials. He's been recommended to Betty and Barney Hill. So what I'll probably do is I could do a second panel that's a close-up of his, literally his degree on the wall. Maybe he's in silhouette in the background. And that's all we sort of need. We could also show him with those backgrounds and holding a folder in his hands with Betty and Barney Hill, which I think that's probably the most interesting thing to do. So I'm going to do that. This panel is going to be him at his desk holding a folder. For some reason, there's going to be pictures of Betty and Barney Hill. I can't imagine when he got recommended the case that somebody sent him a folder with photos in it and stuff, but this is visual storytelling, so that's what that's about. I could also do all of this in one single panel. But the style of storytelling that we're doing, which is this kind of documentary sort of style, feels like it needs to have just a close-up establishing his face and the office first. Otherwise, these could easily be put into one panel. But the way I'm seeing it in my head is it should be two panels. And I'm not even sure how many panels are going to be on the page yet. So sometimes I'll lay these beats out where I find these moments and realize there's too many panels or not enough panels. But first, I just go into it. I don't ask myself questions because it'll just slow me down, right? So just go right into it, figure it out, reverse engineer it afterwards. Most noticeably, we discussed his skeptical. He was skeptical about the existence of UFOs, but he was willing to help the Hills given Barney's health issues and Betty's nightmares. He learned that he wasn't. He warned them that this wasn't a road to objective truth, but he could provide clarity. So this is a little more abstract. This is more about what he's thinking, and I could break these down into individual panels, but I think this is really much more of a motivation. So I think what would be cool is I could either show him on the phone, sort of one of these shots where he's on the phone. There's like a cord in the panels, and then there's Betty and Barney Hill over here. Stick figures, phone, stick figures, phone, Betty and Barney. I could do something like that. But I think it's going to be more interesting to show a close-up of him holding a book about UFOs because he's having doubts about the whole situation. He just wants to help Betty and Barney Hill, but he doesn't have any real belief in UFOs. So I'm going to actually have him holding the same book that we established earlier in the series that Betty was reading. So he's learning about the UFOs. I'm not expressing that great. I think in the second part of this, when you actually see the panel breakdowns, it'll make more sense of what I'm going for. But yeah, I could do this very literal of them on the phone, but there's something about seeing the hands close up to a book, I think that shows more of his thinking rather than a panel like this, which is much more literal. This is literally showing him talking onto the phone, whereas if I have him holding a book about UFOs that he's trying to figure out, I'm showing more of his thought process, and I think that's more impactful than kind of an on-the-nose, here's exactly what you need. Sometimes you need the on-the-nose shot, sometimes not. Okay, so over the 3 weeks, he established necessary conditions which each of the Hills would have to respond to his techniques, and it would forget that they had discussed at the end of each session, so they could not share the stories with one another. So he's talking about like his hypnosis process here. I could cheat and use like a watch dangling. Like literally, I could just draw a hand, or this guy, Dr. Benjamin Simon, holding like a watch in his hand in an old sort of stereotypical cartoonish way of hypnotizing people. But I know from reading the books that that's not what it was. He was using like a voice responding thing. So I still could use the watch dangling to sort of visually indicate what that is. Let me think about this for a second. I think what's important here is we're establishing sort of parameters between Benjamin Simon and Betty and Barney Hill. So what's more important than to emphasize the actual hypnosis thing is to emphasize Benjamin Simon establishing basically a trust between the three of them and building up this psychological access that he's going to have through hypnosis, through speech therapy. So I'm going to have them just talking over coffee. Really exciting. Actually, it is to me. I mean, this stuff is character stuff, way more exciting than people shooting guns or jumping out of windows, because those things sell themselves. You know, I don't have to really express an emotion when somebody's jumping through a window, whereas this is going to be much more subtle and difficult of, you know, Barney's going to have to look untrusting. He's not quite as sure about all this stuff. Betty's probably physically leaning in. She's totally into this stuff. And then the doctor is like just trying to figure these two out. So he's going to be more offset. So there's way more storytelling in there than an action scene. So while it sounds boring as a coffee scene, it's way more exciting to me than a superhero thing and stuff. All that superhero stuff is fun, but it's just such a different beast, and this is the stuff I'm really enjoying these days. All right, and this looks like perfect pacing. I'm going to have 5 panels here, probably. So he began with with Barney Hill, and over 2 hypnosis sessions, Barney would provide a strange account of the missing time. So what I'm going to do here is there's a classic well-known photo, if you follow these cases at all, of Betty and Barney Hill being hypnotized in their chairs, both looking down. So I'm going to recreate the scene because it's literally the two of them being hypnotized already. He began with Barney Hill And over 2 hypnosis sessions, Barney would give a strange account. Actually, so this is really just Barney. So, yeah, I'm just going to start with Barney sitting in the chair in that sunk position I've seen him in those other photos, and the doctor leaning in, doing his thing. So these are the beats, and this is how you find them in a Marvel style script. Sometimes you're gonna, and I wish this was one of those pages, but I just leapt right into it where I would break up some of these descriptions. Like sometimes there's a beat within a description. There's two things going on, and you want to separate those two things so that they can each have their moment. And some of this is instinctual. You just pick it up through repetition of drawing pages, writing scripts, reading, and understanding the beats. And the more you do this, the more fluent it becomes. I enjoy working both full script, which I almost always do with Brian Bendis. I'm super in love with doing this sort of Marvel style stuff. Yeah, and if you have any questions, post them down below, and I'll see if I can answer them the best I can. Yeah, that's how I go about figuring out the panels on a page and starting the breakdown, and maybe I'll do another video of actually drawing this stuff. And there you go. Thanks for hanging in there, guys.